Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll do roll call of committee members. Maggie Buckley here. Amber Brown here.
Okay, Tom's here.
Susan Dominigini here.
Kate McDonald here.
Okay, anyone want to do the school verse?
I'll do it this time.
Okay.
Okay, this is our school. May peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here. Love of one another, love of our school, and love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house, so many hearts build a school.
Okay, thank you, Kyron. And then any audience to address the committee? All right, hearing none. Is there any agenda modifications? Okay, yeah, I don't think there should be any, right? All right. And then we need to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2022. Can I get a motion?
I can move to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2022.
And I will second that.
Okay. Then we will do a vote. Start with Maggie.
Maggie Buckley, aye.
Amber Brown, aye.
Kyron Combs, aye.
Kate McDonald, aye.
Susan Dominigini, aye.
Okay. Oh, there you go. That's helpful.
There they are.
Okay, so we just need to mention that we're still doing the teleconferencing during the state of emergency. So that'll be going until further notice. And then we are ready for financial part reports.
All right, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay, so we have the update for February. So along with that, I'll note that the second interim is January. There's not a lot of change from January to February, but the interim report is through January approval. And then we updated after that the state certified P1. So it helped lay out what the cash flow would be for February through May, and then the final award trued up in June. So we have been talking about this, and I just wanted to make sure we stress in planning the challenge of the budget right now. I know 21-22 is hopefully an outlier year, but we have to keep that consideration looking at budgets, that what's happening in this model is with enrollment down to about 272 on an average. We're below 3 million in ongoing revenue at that level. And the difficulties of this year have pushed expenses up above 4 million. So there is the federal funding to cover that, and that's how it's being managed. But because of that significant need in this year, that's going to reduce the amount of federal funding available to the future years. It's going to be a lot more available this year than next year. And we're starting to run into concern where the federal cash is being calculated quarterly, and then basically you're receiving it the next quarter. So you're on a real big delay on receipts. So if that money makes a significant portion of the budget, as it does here, we start seeing timing concerns where we're going to have ongoing expenses on a month-to-month basis and a significant amount of cash that's not going to be received during 21-22. So when we get through the whole thing, you can see that the results for the school can be balanced out with that cash, but because it's so much, with those federal funds, but that cash strain is creating a risk. At this time, it's just a model, but when we look at the model, it's a risk in June, July, August. So fortunately, it's March. We'll still have some more information to gather in the next month and a half. But we want to put that on the put that on attention that we need to start monitoring cash closely. I know we talked about that last year, but we had a few more state positive events, where more cash came in at the end of the year. That's less likely because a lot of those are already included in this model. So those are kind of the big highlights, is calling out the challenge of the operating budget this year and what that means for looking at next year, and that we're probably going to run out of cash unless receipts are accelerated. We do have the note, we still hold out for a possibility of hold harmless ADA, which could add at that level, would add a whole 475,000 at a 3-year average would be about 300,000 on a cap basis. I think we would still anticipate those funds not to be received until into next year, but probably quicker than the federal money. Looking at the enrollment model, similar to what would have been presented at first interim. So it's set to the P1 ADA of about 242. Going back to the original budget, obviously that's a very significant decline. So we have the lower trend in enrollment in general, and then the lower trend in ADA attendance this year, both contributing to a $273,000 decline from what the budget would have been coming into. That's being supplemented by the availability of the federal money and the expanded learning money, and using that in-person money this year, available last year, this year. So that's adding over $600,000 to this year's budget. But as you can see, there's only about 560 remaining for the next 2 years. So you do have the ability to get through this year's budget. It's just going to make budget planning more difficult for next year. Expenses compared to, because we're going back to the old budget, we want to note, like, what did expenses change compared to the last time we met? So mostly there's been more hours compensation cost in the model. I know that's planned and part of response to the situation, but just noting that. And then we had increased costs in IT, something we would see throughout the state this year, and specifically to provoke more recruiting costs in the budget this year. So generally, those are the same three sources we've been seeing throughout the year, where we're going to see overages growing. The fourth one probably would be higher special education costs this year than in the past. So looking at the impact on the surplus, overall, we're looking at a surplus of about 656,000, about 16%. Down from the budget number of about 1.1 million. But fortunately, still at that 16% mark. You can see the cash trend, because it's operating in a loss. We have the overall decline, and we have the timing specific decline related to using the federal funds to cover that, with most of that cash not arriving within this fiscal year. So this is still just a projection from March forward, but that on federal funds, we don't see any opportunity where that's going to come in quicker. So that's where we get concerned. So there's still opportunity to squeak through this. Careful cash management at the end of the year. If the federal funds arrive early July or somewhere in there, but we got to start planning for June, July if there's any need for additional cash. And our notes, we have the interim report for approval. The consolidated application will be completed this week for the federal funding. Audit firm selection, I believe, is already done. And then we'll have reporting done this month and next month. Are there any questions about the February financial update?
I had a question. Can you go back to where it was showing, I think it was like 4 slides back. One. Where it was showing where we were over and under. I'm sorry, I went to write it down right there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm assuming benefits are over, obviously, because salaries are over, so those kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
What's the sub agreement services? What would that be?
Primarily special education.
Okay,
And
okay,
that can also relate to if you, when you shift, if you shift from whether someone's a staff or a consultant, we'll get the shift into an increase in services. So it's a combination of more need, but also there's some shift from staff to consulting.
Okay, meaning that we're like subcontracting out some of our services?
Yeah, more subcontract.
Okay. And then the certified salaries, can I just, probably a really broad question, but why are we so far over? What specific reasons? Is it, I mean, I know that we have more substitute cost. Does that fall within there? Is there, what's the specific reasons? Since, I mean, our student population hasn't gone up, it's gone down. So I'm just curious on why we're so far over there.
Yeah, certified there's some offsetting between increases and then, like I said, the shift of staff leaving and being replaced by consultants. So that would actually help and reduce the overage. Costs would go there, although that would be if the sub comes in and there's no change. So if a teacher went on leave and wasn't paid, right, you'd expect that to net to zero. But if a teacher is on paid leave time and you have increased sub costs, or if you have additional need and you bring in a sub and there's no change, that would be an increase. There's also in this year, there was increased hours in sub. So that pushed all year, we've been seeing increased variance in salaries and benefits for additional educational hours that are covered by the grants. So they're offsetting with the grant revenue. It's just been more of a challenge to the budget because the base revenue fell so sharply. So if we'd have had a forecast at the budget for base revenue, we could be saying, oh, I have, say 100,000 additional costs and that's set by 100,000 additional grant revenue. But unfortunately, the base calculation, if it's at realized ADA, which is what the forecast is at right now, if I go back, you can see where the revenue is, 270 plus decline on an ADA basis. And so
270, yeah.
costs that were approved for grant money now are standing out because the revenue is declining also instead of breaking even.
Can I ask a question on that also? Because I'm looking at it and when we say certificated salaries are 300,000 over the budget, that's like 3 to 4 teachers. And I know I'm not that far over from what our plan was last year. So the annual full year, forecast versus budget makes sense, but that one doesn't make sense to me, Jim.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, apologies, I wouldn't drive at that one. I use the full year.
Right, so you really, the annual to full year, so you were talking about 20,000 over.
I'm talking 20,000 over. Yeah, I'm not worried about the 300. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right,
fair,
thank you for that, because the
I
first
look
one
right
I was,
past that.
yeah, that was like, okay, I'm a little, there's got to be some reason that that's off so much. So yeah, and that's high, but we have had so many subs and we've had the adjustments of supporting our regular salaried staff to cover for the absences. This was huge in January.
Right.
So that doesn't surprise me all that much. And then the classified salaries, we've really brought in a significant number of aides. So that doesn't surprise me all that much either. So
I guess that kind of leads me into my next question, knowing that, and knowing that we might be in the same situation as far as enrollment next year. How do we go forward? I mean, those are just the blaring ones to me that came out that we were really, over on. And that's a tough one. because, we need the support staff, we need, the benefits are what they are, but I mean, that's gonna be the section that we're really looking at, right? Because you could cut other places and it's not gonna really be that significant, so, maybe just, I don't have a solution, just thinking about what our game plan is gonna be on that moving forward, because if enrollment and attendance is going to be what it's gonna be, even if it goes up slightly, we're still gonna be in this situation. And with our funds that are gonna be coming in being, less than half of what we already have, I don't know, that just worries me, so.
Yeah, and does me too. And we're hoping that the state does, addresses this, the funding by passing some of the bills that they're talking about passing to change the way they structure their payments to schools through ADA. So that's like a hope that we all have, and that would make a huge difference going forward. But we also are looking, I've been working on the numbers. I'll talk about this during the Sustainable Schools report. And Jim and I'm asking him to meet with me next week or the week after, because the things are so fluid at the state. It's hard for us to figure out what the actual next step should be. If we cut to the point, and I can't even talk about it anymore. It's just so, if they're talking about giving us a 5+% increase, that is a big change in what we would have to adjust in the current budget, adjust for next year. And those are all numbers I don't have yet. So it's really hard. Yes, it's a concern, and I'm glad we're talking about it. Right now, I don't have any answers for you. Until Jim and I really have a chance to go, okay, this is what we could do with federal funds next year. This is what we need to do. Otherwise, my biggest concern and my biggest aha that Jim is bringing forward is that delay in funding and what that might do to our summer numbers. So, yeah, that's.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
you know,
concerning too. I was just thinking that since enrollment has been trending down, it's probably something to consider as well, right? As going into that. And I haven't done a budget process with the school yet, so I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I totally understand all the unknowns, and I mean, fingers crossed for some of this funding to come through and come through on time. And I know you're looking at the now. I was just kind of looking at in the future, are we going to have to sort of get a little bit of different a mindset of where we're going to be enrollment wise, because since it's trending down, I mean, hopefully it doesn't continue to trend down with a lot of the great changes, that are going on, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
Susan, can I ask, this is Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Are there any grade level double tracked grades that are in danger of maybe going to single?
Kate, I don't feel I can answer that question today.
Yeah, it's too early. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Susan, don't we have a lot of teachers that are on 10-month contracts that, will be paid off before the summer? Does that help at all?
And that may be why the difference between 300,000 and 20,000, Kyron, that might be part of that. And yes, because we stopped paying them, I think, for May and June. So,
Oh, okay.
Yes.
but I can't, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all included in the annual,
Mhm.
Okay.
but like Susan said, it does create a timing shift on when the cost comes in.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Jim? All right, we appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so business. Oh, do we need a vote? Do we,
Vote
sorry,
to approve the financial.
sorry, we have to vote to approve the financials?
I
Or,
move to recommend the financials to the board.
I'll second the motion.
all right, start with you, Maggie.
Maggie Buckley, I.
Amber Brown, aye.
Everyone comes aye.
Kate McDonald, I.
Susan?
Oh, Susan Dominican, aye, sorry.
All right. We approve that to move to the board. Moving on to business, second interim report. Guessing this is you, Susan?
Sure. Actually, I'll let Jim take it if you would,
Oh,
please.
okay.
Sure. Yeah, so this is just the report out as of January to this and the authorizer. And so just based on the timing of the meetings, if we get January done, we might not be able to convert it into this template in time for that same meeting. So in this case, January was presented last meeting, very similar to the February you just saw, a little more expense growth in February. But this is presenting the model as of January for the authorizer in the state.
So basically, these are numbers we saw in January, correct? Or February, Jim, right?
Yes, correct.
So this is just what we saw in February, put it in new form. So I'll move to approve, to recommend that the Charter Council approve the second interim report.
Second that.
Okay, so we have a second. We'll go for a vote.
Maggie Buckley, I.
Amber Brown, aye.
Everyone comes aye.
Kate McDonald, I.
Susan Dominican, aye.
Annual auditor section.
So every year by, I think it's April 15th, maybe, I don't know. We have to inform the County Office of Education. We have to approve a new auditor and inform the county office in the district that we have approved them. So this is our same audit firm we have been using. They do a rotation every couple of years of having new staff cover our audits. So that's how a rotation in the office is done, to make sure we don't always have the same person. And we've been very happy with working with them. They have processes that are easy to engage with. Both Maggie and Alex work with them to get it done. So we've been very pleased with how it's worked. And so I'm proposing that we continue with them for another year.
Okay. Is that something that we need to approve here, or are we going to send it to the board, or?
Yes, it's a contract, so you want to approve it. You want to recommend it to the board.
Okay, recommend to the board. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Okay, so we can entertain a motion to approve, to send this, recommend this to the board.
I will move to recommend continuing with our current audit services to the board for approval.
I can second it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
Maggie Buckley, I.
Amber Brown, aye.
Everyone comes aye.
Kate McDonald, I.
Susan Dominican, aye.
Great, moving on. AT&T master agreement.
So we work with someone, her name is Rachel White, and works with us on the E-rate funding, which is funding that schools receive for technology issues and either direct funding or reductions. So she did a check for us on our services. We've been with Comcast, and she put it out for a bid. AT&T came in by about a third of the cost. So with the same services, we checked in with our BCOE technology department, and they see no difference in the services that would make it a concern to go with a lower cost company. So we are proposing that we move from Comcast to AT&T and ask for your approval of this agreement.
Great.
So Susan, this is like no serious reduction in bandwidth or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay.
How much is the cost savings?
Maggie, do you have that? I don't know that I have that easily.
I don't have that at all.
uh,
I do not.
But you
have
said
that.
we're looking at
I
about a
was looking
third.
for it in this paperwork, but I don't see it.
Well, I mean, I was just curious,
Yeah.
but.
You said a third of the cost, Susan, so.
I think it feels like it was like from 12,000 to 4,000, something like that. Let me look. I can look it up quickly.
Well, Comcast does take people to the clean.
Yeah, they do. And it's funny because I upgraded my phone not that long ago, and they offered like home services and were like giving me, I wasn't in the mood to change, but I was like, I need to look into this. And they've been offering services like this for a while, so I can't imagine it's not, up to par, and comparable, so.
Give me one more minute. I almost have it.
Okay. Does this contract start when the school year starts?
I don't know.
I have
I
all the
do
hard
not
questions
know.
apparently
I know.
today.
No, it's not that at all.
I'm
It's just that, I'm not always aware right away of all the details.
I'm just, again, curious on how quickly we'll be having the savings. It's not a big deal, Susan. I was just curious.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, that sounds like a huge savings. So so you need us to approve it or to recommend it to the board?
I need you to recommend it to the board.
Okay,
Will we have that savings number at the board meeting?
yeah, that might be nice.
Yeah.
I think so.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
be great. All right, I don't know if I can make motions since I'm the, Alex, can I make motions or?
I feel like I hear Chelsea make some.
I feel like I do too, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's like not cool.
Yeah. Am I allowed to make motions, Susan, or is it?
Oh, yes, you may make
Oh,
motions.
I always think you guys do. 'Cause I just thought I wasn't allowed to. All right, so I will recommend that we send to the board the AT&T master agreement. So I can get a second.
I second.
Okay, and we will vote.
Maggie Buckley, aye.
Amber Brown, aye.
Everyone comes back.
Kate McDonald, aye.
Susan Dominican, aye.
Awesome.
Oops, I'm sorry if I cut you off, Kate.
Oh, you're fine.
And then, okay, so executive director's report.
Okay. So primarily, I'm going to talk about the sustainable schools work that we're doing, or I'm doing right now. I've been doing that. Have put a hold really on any new hiring at this point, considering our budget. So that makes it hard for our counseling and needs to some extent. We've had had to cut back on how often the wellness room is open and things like that. And we had one of our aides resigned. So we're a little short staffed. But considering where we are in the year and also our budget, I feel like that's the best choice. And we are starting to look at next year as far as we did intentions for teachers for next year. So we worked on that today. So that will move us forward in preparing the budget. We also are looking at some of those sub-agreements we talked about for special education, and if there are better ways we can utilize some of the funds we're using there as well. So we are continuing we are really starting full force the planning for next year at this point. That's my report.
And then that moves us into the Sustainable Schools Design Task Force, which is us.
Yeah.
Save the school, guys.
Yeah. So proposal on numbers.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up, that I'm still looking at those numbers. We talked about them pretty well and how we come about them next week. Last week, I'm looking at continuing to look at that. And as I said, I want to meet with Jim because of just the way things are. It's, I've for years said we get about $9,000 per student. That's for years we've said that. Well, that's sort of out the window right now. And if I try to budget to that, it won't work. So trying to establish with him maybe some planning over the next 3 to 5 years for that sustainable schools piece. And then also looking at transitional kindergarten and how that affects us, and the preschool. March 1st, quite a bit of information came out as far as planning for preschool and transitional kindergarten. One of the issues I realized is we had talked about preschool primarily for 4-year-olds, but transitional kindergarten over the next 3 years will pretty much absorb that 4-year-old group. So then do we want to go down to 3rd graders? Our 3-year-olds, I'm sorry. I do have a couple of really strong staff members that are interested in helping with the planning of that. So I'm looking forward to having a team to support that. And then if we want to go, if there is a plan, there's a grant available for planning. And so my understanding is that response will need to be approved by the board by June 30th. So over the next couple of months, that will be one of my main focuses, is to see what we want to do in transitional kindergarten and preschool. And so I'm glad I have a couple of experts to help me, and hope that will go also towards our enrollment over time as well. So anyway. So that's where we are.
Set a question. I know that there was some funding, and I can't remember what exactly it was, but wasn't there some funding for like an after-school program?
Yes, there is. It's the extended learning program, and it had been established last year that we needed to have a plan by the end of this school year. They've backed that off for another year. So there's really a couple things happening that seem to be connecting together pretty well. Our expansion into preschool, our expanded learning, and our new building. So all of those things are kind of connecting, and looking at probably next year of really implementing that. But I've also reached out to CARD to see how we can work possibly with them to offer more. Their program is really K through 5th. And so they actually cover all the hours we would be required to do. So if we can somehow supplement that, plus add a middle school offering, I think we can do pretty well. The expanded learning also requires us to offer education for 205 days a year. We're currently at 177. So the additional, my thought is that we look at maybe some programs over break for specific students, but primarily for some sort of a summer school program. So
Is there like because I know they put a lot of parameters around some of this funding. So what are the specifics of this one? Like how many years? When do you need to spend it by? Does it have to have a learning component? Like, I mean, I would hope it does, but like how is it structured?
I don't have a lot of those details for you
Okay.
right now. I've been thinking more in terms of what we've discussed as far as the need for so many families to have that longer care. And so we would be actually serving our community better.
Mhm.
The parameters, my assumption, if it's based on the ACEs program, which has been around since Schwarzenegger, it would require some level of educational component as well.
But like a homework club or something would probably
Right.
meet that. I'm just thinking
Yes.
really
So,
simple.
yeah, and when you look at what CARD does, they do really have that. They have a homework component built into their schedule so that kids are intentionally expected to do any homework they have during CARD. And so it would be just a strengthening and probably a better connection with the school. And again, expanding that to make sure we're covering upper grades.
Yeah, and I was thinking specifically of working with CARD. That's kind of why I asked the parameters. Is it something that you can work with, you know, somebody with that's not necessarily within the school? Because I think trying to staff for something like that, and I mean, that's just, so basically I was wondering if we could do it the same way we're doing the extended preschool program. And my suggestions would be, just because I think it might help with enrollment, is having some specific, it's specifically for maybe Thursdays, like an extended program, which obviously our staff members can't do because they're in meetings. But if we could work with CARD, that maybe we sponsored like 20 kids that could stay, you know, until even 3 o'clock or 3:30, that just gives parents that extra time on Thursdays, might be helpful. Because I think I kind of expressed to you that with us being a charter school and we're replaced and we have a lot of students that are not in the area, you know, it kind of the target parents we can have, we can't really have a lot of 2 working parents, right? It's difficult with the school because of Thursdays, you know, and then specifically with junior high kids, because parents don't have an option for them, you know. So if you have a, you know, grade school kids that are in the after school program, what do you do with your junior high kids? So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, just on the sustainable school aspect of that. If there's somewhere we can offer that, because I know the kindergarten, that's huge to have the extended kindergarten. I mean, that's, I see it's utilized a lot. I think that's huge for parents being able to pick up all at the same time. A lot of times they have older siblings. So if we can kind of think of it in that aspect, maybe we're not giving them all the way till 4 o'clock, but we're doing maybe 3 or 3:30 on Thursdays, because I don't know how much funding it is and how, you know, but even if we're just doing it 1 day a week or 2 days a week, it might be helpful for some of those parents that need that. Or the second thought was sponsoring a few kids to do CARD program. So, you know, helping out a few parents that need the CARD program for after school program, you know, for after school, but just can't afford it. But then I do know that for CARD specifically, there's like 19 kids on the wait list right now. So last time I checked, yeah. So I don't know what that looks like, if CARD's really going to be able to help us out if they have so many on the wait list.
Well, yeah, and if it's up to that high, that's a staffing issue for them. Because before, when we've talked, it's been for every 12 students, they'll add a staff member, because our building is large enough for them to have those still, you know, they don't have a limitation because of the amount of space we provide them, the great room and the kinder care room. So yeah, so there's probably a staffing issue, and that's, again, I've reached out to CARD to make an appointment for over the next couple of weeks, as I'm starting to plan budget and see what we can do. And those are the 2 things, you know. My main focus has been, we need to do something for middle school. I think that's my first priority. And then can we some way supplement? So even if we can't pay for the whole amount, if we can for those families that are low income that we have, can we save them a spot or supplement that to bring it into a range that they can afford as well? So those are some of the things I'm reaching out to CARD to have that discussion, and we'll see. They do this kind of collaborative work with the district because of the ACES program that, as I said, has been around for years, that they use, that they do at the middle schools. And so I feel like, they're our experts, so I'd rather just work with them as our experts than try to figure it all out myself. So.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Because even if we were doing like an extended program till like 4 o'clock, we'll sponsor the kiddos for an hour after school for a homework club until 4. At least it's something structured. Parents have an extra hour. I don't know,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then again,
Make it
like the Thursdays till like 3. So again, it
Mhm.
kind of extends their day because, it's great for the noon, but then also if you're working, that's kind of hard on Thursdays. So.
We get a lot of good out of that short Thursday,
Yeah.
as far as developing staff and being able to have some good solid time for collaboration and work. I've worked at schools that don't have that, and that like, okay, you've got 45 minutes after the kids leave to do whatever you need to do. It's hard. It's doable, but it's hard. And the staff meetings are always pretty, pretty short and direct and that sort of thing. And that the collaboration time is really what's difficult. So, and this kind of schedule was designed to help teachers be able to work more together. And I think it's it's very valuable for the teachers to have that chunk of time to work. So I have also put out there, this is a concern for our staff or for some of our families. So how do we want to address it?
Yeah.
And I think this could be the best way, is to build in with CARD to have an extended program for those families that need it. So we'll see.
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's a nice break for the kids too. That's like our catch-up day. It's a nice break. I agree with you that all around, it just, I don't think that, most parents need it. I just think it would be nice to offer it, especially if we're trying to get enrollment up. A new parent that's coming in maybe just can't do it because of the schedule, because we also have longer days, which is nice, that the kiddos don't have to be dropped off till a little bit later. But you can drop them off it's before 8, and then we're extended all the way till 3. So that's kind of nice. Our school day is longer on most days. So if we can just supplement that Thursday, because I agree with you, I don't think it should go away, because there's a lot of great benefits to it. But, if we have even 10 more kids that enroll because we're offering this, it's, that will be a win, I think, especially if we've got some funding. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are advocating, many people are advocating for the fact that if they put this out, they put it out there as kind of a short-term thing, but the schools and charters and everyone are really saying, if you're going to ask us to develop this for 9 hours a day for childcare for families, then you need to long-term fund it. It can't be like, we'll do this for 3 years, then decide. They need to just say this is, equivalent to the transitional kindergarten work that they're planning. It's got to be long-term. So,
Agreed.
and so you asked, how much funding and how long is the funding right now? That's one of the things that are sort of in flux, because they started with, here's money and you have to spend it for 3 years. And gratefully, there are people more powerful than I that are saying, no, we can't, that's not going to work for us. You need to really make this a plan. If you feel this is what we need to be doing as schools, then you need to fund it long-term. So.
Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of, the kiddos being here until 6 o'clock at night. I know that's necessary for some parents. I'm just hoping we could extend the days a little bit for parents. Case, usually parents' schedules work out, or they have a game plan already. And then the second thing I would say is, I don't know, Bidwell has a after-school program that they don't do through CARD. Bidwell Junior High. So I don't know who runs that program or how they run it, but if you feel like reaching out to them, because it's not through card.
It's probably the ACES grant. As I said, it's been around since Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
And they've just chosen to do it themselves.
They
And
do it
I,
in-house.
yeah, I've worked with that in a number of other districts that I worked with where we ran it through a county office of ed. So that's another
Okay.
option. It might be through county office of ed.
Okay,
So, yeah.
just curious. All right, cool.
Amber, I'm not sure if you're aware, we do have homework club on Monday and Tuesdays till 4 o'clock, and then
Oh.
a handwork club also.
On
I
Mondays
believe
and
it's
Tuesdays.
Tuesday. it's a
Tuesday and
handwork.
Wednesday.
What
Tuesday
grades is that? Second?
All grades.
All
really.
grades?
Homework club is 3rd and up,
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We
And
decided
then-
3rd and up,
Yeah.
and then handwork club is 1st and up, I believe.
but we're.
Because like for someone
we are
like
somewhat
me,
limited in how many kids we can have. for
Oh,
that
totally.
location.
but like for someone like me, if I'm picking kids up at 3
Yeah.
and then coming back at
Yeah,
4,
makes
it's
Yeah, no
like,
way.
yeah. it's like-
Doesn't help.
Unless they really need it. Once they're all of age, yeah. But yeah, that's, and I think parents know about that, but I
Okay,
think
yeah.
we tend to have I see parents that have kindergartners and junior high
Sure.
kids. So I think that kind of is a challenge. But like I said, I think it's a small little population. I don't think it's parents as a whole. Most people move their schedules around. And I really think Thursdays is that one day that just makes it a little bit more challenging if you have, because that day is always got to be shorter for one parent, right? Or you have to have after school program for that one day. So that's where I just see the challenge. And that's the feedback I get whenever I am trying to get somebody to come to Blue Oak. What am I going to do on Thursdays? That's always the feedback I get. So that's, just coming from a parent perspective to give that input. But I would never want to take it away, because as a parent that does pick up on Thursdays and knows how great that is for the teachers too, I love that day, being able to do early, but I can just see where that could be a challenge for, some working parents.
Mhm. Thank you for that input. I appreciate it
No
very
problem.
much.
All right, so that was it, right?
That's it.
That's it. We're good. All right, so we are meeting again on April 12th. Same time, same place. We'll see you guys
Okay.
then.
See you then.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.